Now, a little bit more about Common Core. We've looked at international data. I wish I had brought that book from the National Research Council because it has a lot of data about how kids learn math in it. And then looking, the Governors Association said, y'all, we got to do something. Okay? So they got together a group of people, and that's how the Adding It Up book that I've been talking about, all that information came from somebody said, we got to do something in the way we're teaching our students today. So they came up with a group of people, teachers, administrators, and experts, some very smart people, and they decided we want to have some new standards for teaching our students. Okay? Now, I'll tell you, we did, our K2 teachers in Cleveland County Schools just went through 15 hours of training with a colleague and myself. Y'all, we got to the end of one of those trainings. You've sat with me for 15 hours, and a teacher says, is this research-based? And I'm like, I've shared research out the Yahoo with you. Yes, it's research-based, and yes, there are smart people that know how kids learn math that help create these standards. So to me, we need to listen to that. Okay? We have standards in English language arts, and we have standards in math now. Okay? And I told you I'm more math-driven. I've done lots of planning and training for math. But there's also English language arts standards out there, and I'm going to talk to you for just a minute about all that. When I say Common Core, these are national standards so that if a child moves to Georgia, and they're in this, all right, and they're in the same grade, they will be learning the same skills and concepts as the students that are in North Carolina, okay? Now, as of right now, there are 46 states in our country that have adopted the new Common Core standards. Alaska, Texas, Virginia, and Nebraska have not. Okay? So, why am I excited about the Common Core standards? Because y'all, when I'm looking for resources out there, I can go to the Ohio Department of Education. They've got some awesome resources. Maryland has some awesome resources. So as I'm planning instruction, I'm not just finding North Carolina standards now. I've got 46 other states that are working as hard as we are, so there's lots of resources out there. As an educator, that makes me excited that we have that unified focus now on our same standards. Okay? Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt again.
No, you're good.
But I am from Georgia, and I know that I'll be certified if I graduate from a North Carolina school. But with the Common Core coming into play, do you think teachers will be certified in all the states that teach the Common Core?
I do know. I do a lot of work with the elementary ed department at Appalachian and help them with what classes do our kids need, or do our students need. And that's one discussion that's come up is, you know, these students that are coming out of colleges, is there going to be some sort of national certification? I have heard interest in it. I don't know the answer to your question, but I do know there's interest in that across the country, that how can we look at having kind of a national certification. So other than that, then I encourage you, maybe if that's not the case, then wherever you start teaching, certainly you'll take the praxis, which will help with certification. And then also, you know, if you start teaching somewhere, like if you were to teach in North Carolina, become national board certified, and then you've got that national certification that will help in other countries, in other states. Okay? All right, so the Common Core Standards says we're going to provide appropriate benchmarks for all students regardless of where they live. I've talked about that. College and career standards were developed first. This is what we need to get our kids ready for the workplace. Now let's talk about what it's going to look like in kindergarten, first, second grade. That's kind of the approach they took. And then we have topics, or let's see. Then grade by grade K-8 standards were developed, and then they developed the high school standards. So that's just kind of how that came to be. Oh, I meant to mention English language arts is going to change the way we teach reading, because it says that we very much now have to have more of a balance of informational text and fiction text. It's called, I can't think of the exact language, it's literature and, to me it's literature and nonfiction text, okay? And when we look at our instruction, we look at our Basel textbooks now that we use in schools, it's all fictional text. Okay? There's very few nonfiction texts, and we read nonfiction texts very differently. Okay? English language arts also talks about integration. And if I'm going to be reading, why don't I read about social studies and science so I can learn something new within my science and social studies standards? So that's coming there. Okay, now, where does it say here? the language from Common Core is that our new standards are fewer, clearer, and higher. I don't know that I found that yet. I don't think that I found that we have fewer standards or that really they're that much clearer, but I do see where our new standards are taking us to a higher level and a deeper understanding with what we're teaching our students. And that gets me excited when I teach lessons with kids. And here it is. It says they are evidence-based, okay? They are research-based. So if you were to sit through 15 hours of me talking, you would know they're evidence-based. You wouldn't have to ask, okay? Now, I do want to share with you the standards of mathematical practice because this is foundational for the new Common Core standards. You got this in one of your packets of paper I gave you. This stuff was intended for all grades, all lessons, all math concepts we teach. Let me say this again. All lessons in all grades, I need to be teaching these 8 standards of mathematical practice. Okay? And we're going to look at them right quick. And we won't do my activity. And Ms. Sherman, I'll leave you the activity if you want to do it at some point. But this, y'all, to me, here's how I sum up these 8 standards of mathematical practice. It's good teaching. This is what good teachers should be doing. Everybody say, good stuff. Good stuff. I like good stuff when I see for good, that is going to result in good teaching. And here they are. These are the... Oh, another question. I've talked about talking a lot today. Who's doing the talking? Who's doing the math in our classroom? In our classrooms today, who's doing the talking and who's doing the math? The teachers 5 or so years ago. But now what does it need to be? Now it needs to be the kids doing the talking and doing the math. All right, here are our 8 standards of mathematical practice. We need to teach kids to persevere, to make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. How many times do we see kids that are solving a math problem and they say, I can't do this, I quit, I hate math, it's boring, it's hard, the end. That may be some of y'all, okay? So now how can I teach kids to persevere in solving that problem and stick with it until you come to some sort of conclusion? Notice I didn't say the right answer, because we can learn just as much from our mistakes that we make than we can from getting the right answer. So, am I persevering in solving these problems until I get a resulting or a conclusion, some kind of answer? Have I made sense of that problem? Can I visualize this problem when I'm solving it in my head? Not just looking at numbers and key words. Y'all, when I hear teachers say, every time you see the words all together, you add, because I can come up with problems right now that say somebody gave away something when you actually need to add to get the right answer, and kids miss it because they see gave away and they subtract. So how can I visualize and make sense of what's happening in this problem? Number 2, reason abstractly and quantitatively. Going back to that idea about students learn by doing that I talked about earlier, it's called Cecil Mercer's CRA approach, concrete, representational to abstract. We need to provide concrete experiences for our kids. They need to do stuff. Then after they get comfortable with doing it, I can move to a more representational type thinking. I may draw it, I may use numbers, that kind of thing, and then eventually I'm going to end up at a very abstract. That's abstract. I have no clue what I did. That's kind of out there. So we've got to get kids to this level that if you're in kindergarten, how can you reason abstractly? Y'all, this right here is a very abstract concept for a 5-year-old. Okay, that's just a funny looking symbol. But as adults, we know that, oh, that's 3. But kids need to understand that is the same thing as this, as 3 pennies, as 3 whatever. Okay? So we've got to get them to thinking more abstractly on whatever grade level they're at. Construct viable arguments. I've got to be able to tell you why I solved the problem the way I did. But then that's not enough. I need to critique the reasoning that you just gave me for how you solved that problem. How can we do that without talking in our math classroom? We got to model with mathematics. How can I show my understanding? How can I show my thinking? Use appropriate tools strategically. That's what I was talking about a while ago. A calculator is a wonderful tool. How am I using it strategically? There's an appropriate time to use that calculator. There's an appropriate time to use that ruler. Okay? I need to be able to recognize when it's appropriate and then use it well. Attend to precision. Okay, there's some things in math that we need to be precise about. Maybe it's communicating my units of measurement. That if I've measured something, it's not 8. It's 8 what? 8 centimeters, 8 inches. It could be 8 miles, and you measured it on a piece of paper. Okay, how can I teach kids to attend to precision? Look for and make use of structure. We can look at the different structures of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division problems. How can we look for that structure? How can we identify patterns that are happening in math? And then look for it and express regularity in repeated reasoning. Eventually, we do want to get to that automaticity with math facts, but it needs to come through doing and through learning and through talking about it. Then we will become more automatic through repeated reasoning and through repeated thinking. Okay? All right. What questions do y'all have? I've rolled for a long time, and y'all sat beautifully listening to me talk. We didn't get up and move as much as I want to. What questions?
You were talking about how there's standards for the language arts and stuff. And one thing I've noticed as my sisters come through school, they can cut out like phonics and stuff with them. Do you know, are they bringing that in or any of the schools now or what?
Cleveland County Schools, we teach phonics K2 as a method of when I get to a word I don't know, how can I tackle that word and figure it out? So phonics is in some school systems. And in the new standards, it's within that process of reading it, of learning how to read in K2.
Yeah, because like that, like I learned it, but my sister is 7 grades behind me, and she didn't get it in her foundational class. So as a 6th grader now, she doesn't know how to sound out of her.
And I'm gonna tell y'all that whole phonics, whole language debate in school, it's been a nasty debate for a long time. Which is better? You know, giving kids books and letting them learn how to read themselves, or actually giving them that structured phonics. So there's that debate is out there, but within the standards, it's that process of learning how to read is where that's found. Yes, ma'am.
As a student who is doing student teaching like this fall, what should we look for if we're placed in a Cleveland County school? Is K through 6 going to be Common Core?
Awesome.
Or
good question. All right. Starting next school year, okay, North Carolina, we have the Common Core National Standards. We also have the new State Essential Standards. This was English Language Arts and Math. The Essential Standards are Science, Social Studies, Informational Skills, Health, PE, Drama, Dance. There's standards for all of that out there, okay? They're new Essential Standards. Now, in Cleveland County Schools, we are currently teaching K2 are teaching Math Common Core this year. So as you go out and do internships and observations of teachers, I hope you see this stuff in K2 classrooms. Okay? Then, K4, we are teaching the new Science State Essential Standards, and K5 Social Studies. Now, for when you do student teaching, it's all going to be brand new. K5, K6 actually, is going to be new Common Core, English Language Arts, and Math, and then all of those essential standards will be new.
So all of it will be there?
Yeah.
No North Carolina Standard versus Study?
It's not
like
called
the old one?
Right, it's not, yeah, it's the essential standards now, but yeah. And a lot of it's similar, but some things have changed.
Would you clarify then if a student has selected 3rd grade coming into the fall of the year, then these student teachers then would be a part of that same training process that these new teachers are going to walk into in the fall?
Right, and that looks very different county by county. You know, we have, in Cleveland County, we put a lot of emphasis on math because we got to change the way we teach math. And that's been county-wide trainings. And we're going to start our 3-5 trainings at the end of February. We're getting ready to do another big training. And then there'll be 2 days in the spring. And then our teachers are going to come back for 1 day in the fall to finish up their math. But then the English Language Arts K5 is going to be done in our schools.
So in terms of prep for this group, what should we focus on?
I would say just be familiar with math, be familiar with these standards of mathematical practice and how you can integrate this kind of thinking into lessons that you're writing now, lessons that you're preparing for student teaching. As you look for English Language Arts, I would say plan for nonfiction text, whatever grade level you're going to be at. How can you use that nonfiction text? And then also, how can you structure a reading, writing activity to allow for kids to talk about it? Talk about their understanding. What else? I am excited for y'all. I have to say I'm a little jealous. Because, yeah, and I mean, to one, be coming out of college right now, it's an exciting time to be in education. Teaching is absolutely don't get me wrong, the hardest job in the world. But teaching is also the best job in the world. And we find that from those little innocent things that our kids say and do for us all the time. And so teaching is awesome. So I wish you the best of luck. And if I can do anything, Ms. Sherman knows where to find me.
That's right. And I failed to say that Mr. Bettis was also a teaching fella. So I guess you can tell he was and still is an excellent teacher. We have a lot of resources just right around here. 2 grade schools in Bowling Springs, elementary schools, and so we will give you what all you need. And if you think of questions that we didn't get answered today, if you'll ask Dr. McKinney or ask me, we'll find you the answer. Okay? And Mr. Bettis, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, students, y'all. Good students.